Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that aside. Put that there. Put a little bit of cleaner wax on the towel. Now this is pretty much a brand new Patriot. This isn't that old. I'm going to check the needle and make sure the needle looks good. Now sometimes the needle might look a little bent or a little rough or anything like that. You can take a piece of glass, lay down the glass, lay down a little, this is 2000 grit, lay down a little 2000 grit and just sit there and slide the needle on it and spinning the needle as fast as you can while it's in your hand. Now you're not taking off a lot of material, so you don't have to worry about out of rounding it, but you're going to do this very gently. You're just going to lightly sand the burrs off of it. You guys had no sound? You guys had no sound? Oh, no sound. Alright. I'm going to use a little, let's go backwards. A little cleaner wax. Put a little cleaner wax there. It's a brand new airbrush needle, so I don't have to do too much to it. Take a piece of glass. Take a piece of glass, some 2000 grit sandpaper, and just lightly spinning the needle, dragging it on the sandpaper, and you want to hold it about the same taper that the needle had before. Now look at your needle, because some of them have a dual taper, so you want to make sure that you stay about the same. Now most of the time where I'm sanding it is so far forward it's not in the nozzle itself. So, well, 2000 grit, usually it's hard to find sandpaper that's 2000 that is not wet. Okay, so you just want to lightly sand it. Make sure you're holding it at the same angle. You don't want to sit there and creep up. You want to hold it at the same angle, and you're just dragging it on the paper as you're spinning it. Now basically that's all this is doing is getting burrs off. You don't want to sit there and just spin it in one place, because what that'll do is that'll put lines on it going this direction. You want the lines to be straight off. As straight as possible. Now it does not have to be wet for doing this, but so see, I'm barely pulling anything off of it, so it doesn't really matter if it's wet or dry while you're doing it. Okay, so now you put a new tip on the needle. Now we're going to take a little bit of polish. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take polish on a hard surface. If you have leather, that's the best. But I'll just sit there and move it on the glass. Sometimes what you can do is take the sandpaper and flip it over on the back side and just do it on the back side. It's a fine needle for the Patriot. I don't know what it is. Alright, so now I ran a little bit of cleaner wax on it. Now I'm just going to put it inside the towel, and I'm going to polish the whole entire needle, mainly where it goes through the packing. Now you don't want to go too far. You don't want to touch the tip of the needle. You just want to polish the needle itself. Now this is what will give you that real smooth trigger, even on the cheap airbrushes. Now if you're not getting black off on the rag, that means you're not pulling any metal off. It's a cleaner wax. It's just for it's for cars, paint jobs. McGuire's cleaner wax. You can use anything. Chrome polish works better. Aluminum polish works great. Turtle wax has a chrome polish you can use. Just any type of polish, but you want a pretty fine polish. Now this is polishing where the needle goes through the packing, so what it does is it helps that needle slide easier. But you don't want to take off too much material, because otherwise you can get it to where it starts leaking. Yeah, there's all different types of metal cleaning. You can use Jeweler's Rouge. But you don't want to take off too much material, so it's not... You know, before this almost felt like a 3000 grit or 2000 grit sandpaper. Now it actually feels real polished. Now that's going to make the needle slide in and out of the packing a lot easier. It has wax in it, but that's going to come off as soon as we... dip it in lacquer thinner again, so that's not going to be a problem. Okay, now I'm going to go right to the tip of the needle and just squeeze my fingers together and spin the needle. So now this is going to polish out all those sand scratches we put in it. So now what I'm doing is just pinching the needle and spinning it. You don't want to move the needle too much. You want to make sure that it has cushion so you don't bend the needle. Now the finer the needle, the more cautious you have to be. You know, sometimes I won't even polish the needle except for just on the paper. Okay, so now this feels nice and smooth. It got rid of all the machining. Now what you could do, if there's wax on it, you don't want wax around paint, so what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of lacquer thinner and wipe it off. Now there's another thing we can do with the cleaner wax. There's another thing we can do with the cleaner wax, and that's that requires the nozzle. So we'll try to find the nozzle in this mess. Man, you guys wouldn't believe what's floating around in this thing now. There's our nozzle. Alright. I don't think it would work that way. I think that it would, the wax would actually react with the paint, start coming off and getting inside your finish. And then when you go to clear coat, you could have tons of fish eyes. Which model airbrush? It's the Badger Patriot 105. Yeah, this would actually be one of the cutting, kind of a mid-cut polish. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is make sure the inside of the nozzle is clean. Now what I usually do is take the needle and just slide it, push it on the slide as I'm just kind of walking through. I don't push the needle all the way to where it stops, I just let it just go through, sliding it on the side. And you can see what I'm pulling out of that needle. All different red paints. Now another thing you can do is take a bottle of cleaner, put it right up on the hole. And then spray through it. It's another way to clean it. And if you're very careful, you can actually put cleaner in another airbrush and spray through with the cleaner. And that'll clean the nozzle. Alright, so now that the nozzle's clean and that's clean, now what we're going to do is we're actually going to do what they call match polishing. They do it on valves all the time. Anybody that has a race car and has custom valves, they'll port and polish and they'll match valves to the heads. So now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that polish, put it in the nozzle, just lightly. Just basically holding it and spinning the needle on the nozzle. I'm just going to sit there and rotate the needle to the nozzle. Now you don't want to push because otherwise you'll make the nozzle a bigger size or there's a chance of cracking it. So you just want to spin it a little bit. And what you should get off on there is a little bit of black. Just like before, so I'm getting a little bit of black off, which is good. And now what that's doing is that's matching the nozzle to the needle. The microns are done that way. Some of the high-end airbrushes are done this way, to where it's matched. Actually, the only airbrush I think you have to do that with is a micron. Alright. That will go back in the restore, clean that wax out. And then this we'll wipe with the lacquer thinner again. A couple drops of lacquer thinner. I am using the Meguiar's cleaner wax, but you can use any company's cutting wax. It just needs to be a cutting compound. Chrome polish works good. Brazo, I'm sure some of you guys have seen Brazo. That works great. Chrome polish, I've used chrome polish before. So, alright. So now that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. We got this, we got that. Okay, set the needle aside again. Needle's done. Now on these Badgers, they have a little cavity in there that are hard to clean. So what I'm going to do is throw a little tape on the side there and just let it soak deeper in the cup. So you can see I just took the cup that we're using for cleaning, and now it's angled towards that, so now I got it kind of coming up the side. Well, you don't have to do this. This is just something extra to do. This is not something that you have to do. This is just when you clean out an airbrush, you know, it makes it a little more smoother in your hand. Makes it perform just a little bit more. I put the cleaner wax into the nozzle. I kind of took the cleaner wax and just kind of poured a little bit into the nozzle. Well, that sucks. Alright, Fate, what type of compressor was it? Okay, Patriot. You might go onto their website and see what you can get to fix it. It might not be that bad of a deal. Nutsy, do you remember Jason Jones's website? Hold on. Now this guy makes the best how-tos I've ever seen. He makes the best how-tos I've ever seen. He has a reducer that seems to be working good. I don't condone using the reducer just because I don't take chances with homemade reducers. But if you're looking for a homemade reducer that actually works, that one does work. His little compressor is awesome. It's a cool little tiny off of a miniature fridge. And you might have one off of a bigger one. Yeah, that's a mini compressor, and then he has a bigger one. But he used 2 little propane tanks. I mean, it's really cool what he did. Cool. You know what I would do? I don't know, where are you located at? US or... I'm sure it has to be everywhere. Michigan, yeah. Go around to the body shop areas and flag down one of the refrigerator guys driving around. You know the guys that recycle metal? You'll find them all the time sitting there with refrigerators in the back, and most of them work. Most of them just aren't efficient, or they're not getting cold anymore, or whatever. The Freon leaked out, which you don't care. Yeah, scrappers. You always see them with big old things, and offer them, you know, $5 or 12-pack of beer or something for the refrigerator. Just tell them you just want the motor. They'll stop. You pull the motor out. Alright, So now we're sitting there waiting for this to go through the reducers. What I'm trying to do is get the cleaner somewhat up to the packing area. Yeah, instead of sitting there soaking the whole entire thing and wasting a whole bunch of cleaner, you know, it's not bad to sit there and just try to do it the way we're doing it. So what I'll do is, let's pull this out now. Let's get my cleaner paper towel over here. Set this down and take a Q-tip. Put a little bit of cleaner. Now I just want to see how bad it is in here. That's the back side of the airbrush. You can see in the color cup how dirty that was. So now what I'm going to do is take a mini brush. I love these little mini brushes. Now I'm going to go in there and pull whatever's in that little packing hole that you can't get to out of there. You see how much paint I'm pulling out? They have a little tiny micro brush on here that goes all the way in and will follow the track of the needle. So you can actually clean out inside the packing. Alright, so now I'm going to take this rag, put it up there, and just use some of my degreaser. Now I like using bottles because you could spray it with a little bit of pressure. So I like using bottles more than I like using a pour spout or something like that for my cleaning. Switch over to this one. And rub it all down, make sure it's nice and clean. Now this is going to go the same with all airbrushes. This is the way you'll clean them. It's the best way to clean them. Grab a little bit of cleaner here. On the back of the brush, clean it up the best I can in there. Clean out a little bit where the air is. Now on my dagger, there's actually an O-ring seal in here. So you got to be careful of O-rings. Make sure you're searching and trying to find all that rubber O-rings if you're going to soak the body in the airbrush and the restore. And if there's an O-ring in there, make sure you get it out. Okay, now it looks like we're getting pretty clean. I can't see any anything in where it shouldn't be. Trigger assembly, all the paint that you get around the weld of the cup, all that's been gone, is off the brush. So now I'm going to set the body with the needle. And next up we'll clean the handle. This doesn't get too dirty. Sometimes, you know, if you're spraying real bad and kind of crazy like I do, and go nuts, sometimes you get a little bit of paint in there. Got a little bit of paint in the threads. Clean outside here, just use the Q-tip. Now as you get more and more needles that are bent, that are beyond repair, hang on to them, because I'll show you why they make a really good cleaner. I got one of my needles that I turned into a cleaner. If I could find it. Alright, here's a needle. It's bent. This is not the one I turned into a cleaner, but we can do that real fast. Now what some people do is they tell you to use a pair of pliers and kind of pre-straighten it. But to me that would always put marks on it that I wouldn't trust. I think it would scratch it too much. So the way that I straighten a needle is I throw it down on the ground on a piece of glass. I take a razor blade and I push as hard as I can down towards the glass. Don't break the glass, but push down decent. And then I spin the needle. Now as you're spinning it, you're kind of drawing it back away from the razor blade and you're pulling it off. Slide it back under the razor blade, push down, and spin again. Now if you do that 5 or 6 times, you'll get a really straight needle. Now this is the one I've bent the top of the needle so I can pick it up easy. Makes it a lot easier to work with and stuff. If you lay it flat on the table, you can roll it up and gives you a handle. So now what you do is you take this needle, and where's what I need? Take a file. I know I got one right here.